Okay, the scripture reading this morning comes from Luke chapter 16, and it's long. Jesus told his disciples, "There was a rich man whose manager was accused of wasting his possessions. So he called him in and asked him, 'What is this I hear about you? Give an account of your management, because you cannot be my manager any longer.' The manager said to himself, 'What shall I do now? My master is taking away my job. I'm not strong enough to dig, and I'm ashamed to beg. I know what I'll do so that when I lose my job here, people will welcome me into their houses.' So he called each one of his master's debtors. He asked the first, 'How much do you owe my master?' 800 gallons of olive oil, he said. The manager told him, 'Take your bill, sit down quickly and make it 400. Then he asked the second, 'And how much do you owe?' 1,000 bushels of wheat, he replied. He told him, 'Take your bill and make it 800. The master commended the dishonest manager because he had acted shrewdly. For the people of this world are more shrewd in dealing with their own kind than are the people of the light. I tell you, use worldly wealth to gain friends for yourselves, so that when it's gone, you will be welcomed into eternal dwellings. Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much, and whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much. So, if you have not been trustworthy in handling worldly wealth, who will trust you with true riches? And if you have not been trustworthy with someone else's property, who will give you property of your own? No servant can serve two masters. Either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money." The Pharisees, who loved money, heard all this and were sneering at Jesus. He said to them, "You are the ones who justify yourselves in the eyes of men, but God knows your hearts. What is highly valued among men is detestable in God's sight." This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. Did everybody see the story in the news about the guy who went in and shot the doctor because his wife wasn't getting any better and then killed his wife and himself? Terrible. Just terrible. While I was up waiting for Brad to come out and tell me how Carolyn had done, I was watching that on the news. It was over by then, but they had one of those guys, you know, the talking head guy, and he was on the phone with somebody inside the hospital, and he asked her the dumbest question, like talking heads always do. He asked her the dumbest question. He said, "Do you feel secure in your workplace anymore?" Well, she said, "Absolutely not." I mean, anybody knows the answer. But the truth is, we don't all know the answer, because no one is secure in their workplace ever. It is a worldly place, and it is not secure. Even the Pentagon is not secure, as has been proven to us 9 years ago. No place is truly safe. An old friend of mine is of the inexplicable opinion that I can preach my way out of a paper sack. I do not know how he came to that opinion. But whenever I get to one of these passages like the one I just read this morning, he would usually meet me at the back door and say, "You know, you usually preach pretty good, but today you quit preaching and went to meddling." Be warned, it may be that I'm about to go to meddling again. I will confess to you right off the bat that I wish this passage was not in the Bible. I wish Jesus had just kept his mouth shut on the subject. Most people I have ever met wish Jesus never talked about money in the Bible. It could be that if Jesus had just been able to stay away from the subject and never, just laid off the money thing, that the Pharisees and the priests and all those other religious leaders might have been able to get over it, and he never would have been crucified in the first place. But Jesus just could not leave money alone. If you go through the New Testament and you take the red letter version, and you look at Jesus' words and you wipe out all the parables about money, you leave Jesus with about 60% of what he said. He talked more about money than any other subject. I will say I'm going to lay off the first 10 verses. I know that has application, but we're not going to apply that today. Most of us have enough trouble managing our own money, not somebody else's money. And so we're going to talk about the last 5 verses today. Would anybody care to hazard a guess as to why Jesus just could not let the subject of money alone? Anybody? No takers.
Probably the most personal thing.
What?
Probably your most personal.
It's probably the most personal subject, J.D. said. Maybe. I don't think that was it. Good answer. Just, I don't think that's right. It's not because Jesus knew that the church would need money. You know, if we'd have done things differently, we could have organized the church in such a way that we never needed any money. We could have done that. We didn't, but we could have. It's not because Jesus thought we should pay our preachers. People always think that when a preacher talks about stewardship, he's looking at it's budget time and he wants a raise. And I don't even know if it's budget time yet. And I don't want a raise. It was Paul that brought that up about paying the preachers, by the way. Jesus was long dead by the time he did that. It's not even because money is such a big subject that it demands to be talked about. It is, but that's not the reason that Jesus couldn't lay off. The reason that Jesus just could not lay off the subject of money is because our use of money is the single biggest indicator of our spiritual relationship with God. Did anybody else feel a twinge when I said that? The use of our money is the single biggest indicator of our spiritual relationship with God. Did that cause anybody any confusion? Well, spirit is spirit and money is money. What do the two have to do with each other? I'm glad you asked that question. I'm prepared to answer it. Many of you were here last week when we talked about security and the longing that is in each one of us to be secure. I mean, even the Constitution of the United States talks about being secure in your person and papers and home. Security is a big deal. Early to bed, early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. Who said that? Ben Franklin. Most people, well, if not most, many people wish it was Jesus, and some people think it was. Most of us have spent the bulk of our lives pursuing the security that money will bring us. There's a big problem with the security that money will bring us. It's fickle. It will love you today and be gone tomorrow. Just ask anybody who had the bulk of their retirement program tied up, as a friend of mine did, and why he had all his eggs in one basket, I'll never know. Enron. 30 years worth of retirement investments. Enron. Just ask anybody who took a bath in 2008, like I did. There wasn't anything anybody could do about it. Hey, it ain't nothing but dough and money ain't got no home. Just ask anybody who took that bath, who has a mortgage that is like 8 times higher than the current value of the house. And that is a great number of Americans today. And you'll find out that placing our security in our money is never anything more than a temporary solution to a permanent challenge. The challenge of our security and finding security never goes away until we find it. When Jesus said, "No servant can serve two masters, either he will love the one and hate the other, or he will be devoted to one and despise the other. You cannot serve both God and money," he wasn't kidding. We can serve one or the other, but we cannot serve both at the same time. The worst thing about money is that money can become our God. And think about that. How many of us have ever heard the old personal financial adage, pay yourself first? Come on. How many of you have heard that? Yeah, I heard that. My parents taught me that. Just because they were wrong doesn't mean I think badly of them. You see, I told you I was going to go to Midland, didn't I? When we put our faith in our money, when we pay ourselves first, we are putting, in fact, our faith in our money. And we are setting, when we place our faith in our money, when we look to our money for our security, then guess what? No matter what we do on Sunday, money has become our God. I told you I was going to admit it in a minute. When we talk about what it means to be a Christian, it means we meddle in each other's affairs. Whatever we look to for our security, no matter if it's money or whatever it is, that thing has become our God. And that's why the use of our money is the single biggest indicator of our spiritual relationship with God. Who do we trust? We put in God, we trust in our money, but we want 5% on the money. We want 30 like we could get in the 80s, but we can't get that anymore.